Welcome, fellow humans. Today I'm going to talk about why I love disability aids. I've noticed in our society that there's a lot of negativity around disability aids. People want you to meet some threshold to really need it before you get a disability aid. And a lot of the time that doesn't make a lot of sense. If the aid would allow you to do more, to accomplish more, then why not use it if you have access to it? We put things into these categories of this is a normal thing and this is a disability aid, and it's almost as if the things that are in the category of disability aid are seen as taboo even for people they would help. And a lot of things that are normal things are also disability aids in the right context, but we don't really focus on that. For example, I often wear hats, and hats are disability aids for me because I'm very sensitive to sunlight and it causes me problems. I also wear sunglasses, but lots of people wear hats because they want to wear hats or because sunlight is actually annoying in many cases just for people who don't have any special needs. And so wearing a hat is something that's like, okay, it's okay to wear a hat if you want to wear a hat. And yet, something like using a cane, people are sometimes weird about. And I don't think that makes any sense. So I'm going to talk a bit about why I got my first cane and some of the disability devices I've used, and a little bit about how people are sometimes a little weird about them. So, a while ago, when I became legally blind, which I no longer am, I'm now visually impaired, but when I first became legally blind, I was really close to the border between as sighted as you can be and qualify as legally blind versus as much vision loss as you could have and not be legally blind, which is why I have now flipped over to the other side. But when I was legally blind, because I was still having a lot of residual vision, it wasn't immediately obvious that I needed to get a cane or other disability devices as options. And for a while, I tried just walking around, and that worked pretty well because I could see large objects, I could manage to maneuver. And then there was a day when I was out for a walk with some friends and it was dusk. This is one of the worst times for vision, and that's generally true. And obviously, with me having less vision, I had a lot less vision than I normally would have. And I was walking with my friends, and I walked directly into the pole of a street sign. I wasn't seriously hurt, but it wasn't great, and I felt really stupid. It was directly in front of me, and I had not seen it. My friends had not alerted me to it because they assumed that I would see it, like you would generally assume a person would. And I realized, yeah, I'm impaired. I don't have normal vision. I should not act like I have normal vision. I have a choice here. I can either try to keep going, pretending I'm a normally sighted person, and sometimes walk into signs and have other problems like that, or I can learn how to do things that in ways that don't require vision and be significantly more competent. And I wanted to be significantly more competent. So I got a cane. And it was great. I used it in front of me, and the vast majority of the time, I didn't really need it. I was just being alerted to things I was already aware of. The main thing that it did for me, and still does for me today, is it helps me with depth perception, because that I don't really have. My right eye has very little vision, and it means that I have very little depth perception. So the cane does help me know when I'm stepping off a curb and things like that, how far the curb is. Most people use sight, but it's actually really easy, at least for me with the cane, for my brain to translate that into knowing what sort of step to take, which is great because without it, if you know that feeling when you think there's a step there and there isn't, or you don't think there's a step and there is, and so you misjudge a step. It's not quite as extreme as missing a whole step. It's a little like that, where when you get the depth of the step wrong, your body just uses the wrong amount of force and distance. It's just unpleasant. And so my cane allows me to regularly avoid that. But every now and then, there has been a situation where my cane has alerted me to something that I just visually missed. And I probably would have had a few accidents of not huge severity, but unpleasantness without my cane. And I'm always pleased when my cane prevents an accident. And so that's great. And I don't see why people would want me to not decrease my risk of accidents when I can do so easily just by using a cane. I also got other disability devices, and I'm wearing one right now. This is the disability device I've gotten the most compliments on. Let's see, there you go. It's a little pendant magnifier. I don't use it so much anymore because I now have glasses that I use when I need to read things, and they have some pretty extreme magnification built into them. But I used to wear this pendant magnifier a lot, and I'd get compliments on it as jewelry, but it allowed me to read things that I otherwise couldn't read. And that's one of those things where it's like disability devices can be nice. They can be aesthetic. That's wonderful. I wish more of them would. That's a great way to do it. I also ended up getting a mobility scooter, not because of the vision issues, but because of the fatigue. Because I thought to myself, I can either not be able to go out and run errands very much, or I can get a device that will allow me to do that. And then I don't have to rely on other people as much. And unfortunately, acquiring a mobility device like a mobility scooter or a power chair can be very expensive. And I was extremely fortunate that my parents were willing to buy me my first mobility scooter. So that's how I had access to it. Not everybody's going to. But if you're able to, it's great. And people have this weird attitude toward it. They'll view it as like, oh, that looks so fun, or I wish I could use a mobility scooter, and things like that. And I have to tell you, even with the mobility scooter, it's more exhausting than walking back when I was healthy. It's so much easier to get around and do things without these devices if you don't actually have a use for them, which is another reason why, like, if people are using these devices, they have a need. They're getting a benefit because it isn't actually easier or more fun to do so if you don't actually have some good reason for why that makes it easier for you. And if it does, then what's the problem? I had somebody get upset with me because I was using a power chair even though I can walk short distances. Because I had used my power chair to get to my doctor's office, which was almost a mile away. If I had had to walk that, then I would have been so worn out, and I'd have had to walk back. And I am fairly sure she got there by car. The hypocrite. She used a much bigger, more expensive mobility device, and I just used a power chair. But she didn't think of her car as a mobility device because people don't. But it is. It allows a person to extend what they can do. And so it's just a matter of which device is the most appropriate and which device people have access to. Anyway, this is a little bit preachier than I normally will be, but I have to go out and about in the world to live my life and get things done. And whenever I do, I have to think about which mobility devices am I going to use? Which disability items am I going to have with me? And how are people going to react to that? I've had people complain about me using the white cane back when I was blind because I was able to look at things, even though 90% of blind people have some vision. But most people just don't realize that, and so they just are mean to blind people. And sometimes they're not even right. Like, they're just assuming that I'm seeing things that I'm not because I have the habit of, turning towards people's faces whether or not I can see the details. I used to do that all the time back when I could, and I still do it regardless of how well I can see things. But that's pretty much what I have to say on this, and I really want to encourage anybody who would benefit from disability devices to be open to it, to look into what's available that could assist you, because we're human beings, and as a species, we're not the strongest and we're not the fastest. We don't have cool venom, we don't have really awesome claws, but we are the best species at making and using tools. Absolutely. The best. That is one of the massive strengths of being a human being, and I think we should embrace that. Anyway, that's my story, and if you liked it, please click like, and if you'd like more similar content, then subscribe. If you know someone who might find it interesting, then share. But most of all, if you have any questions, thoughts, similar experiences, I would love to read your comments. Thank you.